And good evening. Welcome to the University of Dubuque football show here with head coach Stan Zweifel joining us on this Monday night. And there's all kinds of characters walking around the streets of Dubuque tonight. We didn't dress for the show tonight, Coach. We thought about
yourself. I dress like a coach.
I guess I dress like a broadcaster too. Anyway, if you're doing that tonight, be careful, be safe, and enjoy all the great treats. We had a great treat.
Oh my gosh!
Before the show,
did Paul take care of us tonight, my friend? Yes.
That was wonderful. Thanks to Paul Meisner, the Sports Information Director, for giving Coach Zweifel and I a little treat this evening before the show. Well, Coach, it's been a week since we've talked. You had your bye week after a win over Luther College. We'll talk about that win a little bit, talk about your bye week, and look ahead to the big golf ball game this Saturday over just about 6 blocks from here, over the Rock Bowl, as you take on the Loras College Duhawks. But let's take that Luther game first of all, back on the 22nd. Sometimes that seems like an eternity when you're on a bye week.
It does.
But it was a great 68-7 victory, and really especially that second half.
Yeah, the first half, and I had told our team and our players that Luther had been getting better, playing better. And at halftime, I believe it was 21-7, if I'm not mistaken. And we had moved the ball, but we didn't take care of the ball inside the red zone twice on those 5 possessions, and only had 21 points. And I think our men, including our coaching staff, was a little bit frustrated at halftime. And we got inside, and we were very, very analytical, not very emotional. Just told our guys, hey, you're moving the ball. We just got to do a couple things differently. And then in the second half, we had that explosion that we've had a couple times in the last 4 games, either the first half, second half, and had a really fast explosion coming out of halftime, and then put that ball game away early. And I think we played 97 players, we thought, in that football game, which is remarkable in itself. Beautiful day, played well, didn't get anybody injured, but we're still in a situation now is bye week, and we'll talk about that bye week. But when I left the field at Luther, there was, I guess, relief's the best way to really put it, because that's a game you think you should win, and we did, and we won it handily and played everybody. And so then, you set your sights for the next game, but your clock's got to be readjusted because your next game is still 14 days away.
You were up 14-0, and then Luther did score there, and then with 1 minute left, you answered, and that put you up a couple of scores at halftime. How big was that score before halftime?
I think it was really, really big for a number of reasons. Part of it to cut the frustration, Tim, so our offense didn't feel like, holy cow, can't we get the ball in the end zone? And I think that helped us. And then we also got the opening kickoff in the second half, and really had a very efficient drive to put it up 28-7. And then, like we mentioned earlier, the things just started going our way a lot more, and they really struggled in the second half. And I think one of the things that's really interesting for me, Tim, that I'll just share with the audience is, in the first half, they're a hurry-up offense, and they're signaling all their plays in from the sidelines. And they probably ran 17 different plays in the first half. And in the second half, we counted, they only ran 5 different plays. So they were really trying to figure out, well, hey, we can't do this, we can't do that. We're going to try to, stay in the field for a while and not let our offense back on. But it just didn't work out for them that way. And as the game progressed, we really took over both sides of the line of scrimmage, which was the difference in that ball game.
Yeah, there was 673 total yards, 31 first downs. Very balanced too. 345 on the ground, 328 through the air. At a couple of backs over 100 yards,
Yes.
And Kellyan Buckner and Tyler Olenczak coming in and running the ball well as well.
We had Ole as our 4th tailback in games 5 and 6, and in practice he started to show some things. And the week before, we moved him up to number 2 running back, and he has really, really responded. Tim, he gives us a nice 1-2 punch, and we still have Latrence Duckworth, who's been our number 2, and Antoine Talbert. So our running back situation is really, really solid. We got all our quarterbacks to play, all 5 of them on Saturday, which is unheard of for me, Tim, because I don't like to sub quarterbacks in. It's just like starting pitching in baseball. The guy can go, let's go. But we played all those guys and got those guys a couple of our down-the-road guys some experience, and just to get into a college game is a great thing. So those things all kind of worked out for us. And I feel very, very fortunate that where we are right now with a couple positions, we're really healthy off this bye week. And I'll talk about the bye week as we move along, Tim, but we do a couple things in our bye week to shorten up the week, give our players maximum rest with legs, and try to get everybody back to eliminate some of the bumps and bruises.
A few things about the defense against Luther. Held Luther to 273 yards, just 60 yards rushing, and that continues to be a strong point for this defense.
Without a doubt. As we've talked many, many times, our front seven is outstanding, and our back end's got some really, really strong playmakers. And as you put those two things together, and our streak, I think it's 4 in a row now that we've won as we put our streak kind of together. Those two things have complemented each other, being able to cover if we don't rush enough guys to get to the passer, and then when we rush enough guys to get the passer, whether it's a blitz or an add-on, we're able to get some pressure on that quarterback. So those things have worked very good for us. And of course, we've scored a ton of points in 3 of our 4 games. I'm not sure what they are, but astronomical in many, many ways, I think. So I think we're starting to get close to what I'm hoping that we can be the last 2 football games of the season.
One of the big plays on the defensive side of the ball came when the game was well in hand.
Yes.
One of those front guys you talked about, Garrett Hertzfeld, a lineman's dream,
Yes.
tips himself an interception and rushes for a touchdown. Jim Kalor and I were talking in the booth. That was like one of those plays you used to do in the backyards when you're playing your brothers.
Throw the ball up there, yes.
Take off for a touchdown.
I do want to tell you this about Garrett. He's playing defensive end for us, and last year he was our starting middle backer. And we thought he has some really nice pass rush skills, and he's a big physical guy, and he's a great teammate. When we talked to him in the spring about making that switch, I don't know if he was excited about it as I was, because linebackers are like running backs. They want to play that position. But he has willingly moved to that position. I think he's one of the top defensive ends in the conference. He's leading our team in sacks. You got that turnover, like I said. But the leadership and just his pure physical and mental toughness, Tim, really rubs off on the rest of the team. And he's really been outstanding for us.
He's one in a line of players that you've had success moving them from
a
different position here at the university. Do you talk about that just a little bit in general terms?
Yeah, it's really kind of funny because I do give the staff a lot of static about, hey, listen, man, that's one thing I can do very well, and I mean that is, so on defense, you're always trying to get speed on the field. And so part of our thoughts are, if your corners can play safeties, your safeties can play outside backers, your outside backers can play D-end, and your D-end can go inside and play DT. Now you get great speed on the field. You got to have a guy that's willing to do it. Got to be a tough kid, got to be a physically tough kid and want to do that. And then I think, like everything else, you're really trying to evaluate a kid in his freshman year or during fall camp. What can he do that he can bring to our football team? And then we've done the same thing on offense. We've done the same thing trying to evaluate a kid that maybe he's on the defensive secondary but is not tough enough but can run and catch. You're always trying to put kids in position to be successful. I think we're right a lot. I've been wrong before, my friend, and I'll be wrong again. But I think those are kind of things that you're telling the kid, we're trying to get you to be able to help our team, number one, but number two, put you in a position where you can contribute. And really, anybody who plays athletics, they want to get on the field. That's their number one goal. So it's worked out pretty well for us. It really has.
No doubt about that. One area I know you probably weren't too pleased with, too many flags, the penalties.
Tim, that's been the whole year for us. I scratch my head like I am right now when I talk about that with our players and our staff. And I do want to say this to you. You never want to take away an edge on defense of playing physical and rallying to the ball and hitting people hard. And not leading with your helmet, but hitting people hard, playing aggressively, doing those kind of things, aggressively getting off blocks. We went back and charted. We've had 6 face mask penalties on us this year, which is, I think, an inordinate amount. Now, I don't know. We sure as hell ain't teaching the tackle by the face mask, but is that a part of that aggressiveness? Not quite sure. The part that really bothers me more than anything else is, and I'm an old school guy, I think this celebrating BS and jumping around, talking, whatever that is, I hate that stuff. But you only have to turn on the TV and see what the heck's happening at every level of football.
Yeah.
So you're just really trying to curtail it, contain it, curb it without curbing their enthusiasm. And at halftime, I told our guys, I'm not trying not to get you to play with excitement and enthusiasm, but I am trying to get you to play with shutting your mouth. And so that's a really fine line sometimes that you have to run. But I agree with you, Tim. That's been a thorn in our side.
Coach, anything else about the Luther game that stood out before we move on and talk about the next week?
Yeah, I do want to say this to you because I did tell the Luther coach afterwards that I thought his team has improved. They continue to play hard, and I told them to hang in there because those are tough times when you're getting smacked around a little bit like they've been smacked around. So I thought they were better than I thought they're going to be. I know 68-7 sounds like, what are you talking about, Coach? I'm just telling you I thought they were better than we thought they were. So kudos to those guys.
This is the University of Dubuque Football Show with head coach Stan Zweifel on this Monday night, the last Monday of October. From here on out, it's November football for the Dubuque Spartans, and we'll talk about the opponents coming up this Saturday, the Loras College Duhawks. When we return, this is the UD Football Show here on this Monday evening on udspartans.com. We're back on the UD Football Show with head football coach Stan Zweifel as the Spartans getting ready for game week. Our preparations getting underway for the Loras College Duhawks, and that's coming up Saturday. Coach, you're just on your bye week, though, after the Luther victory. Let's talk a little bit about what a bye week entails and just how you attack it as a staff and with your players.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because your bye week can happen on week 2, depending on where you're at, or it could happen at the end of the season like it's happening for Loras. It just so happened for us it happens after our game 8. So we kind of really examined where we are. We had 63 practices in when we played Luther. So our first thought is, jeepers creepers, and we don't know it by now. We might not ever know it. So we took Monday as a day to watch the tape on Luther. And then on Tuesday, we did our normal preparation like we do on Monday, and that's a walkthrough with a scouting report. Wednesday, we had a 90-minute practice with a lot of emphasis on our down-the-line players playing our 3s and our 4s. On Thursday, we did a 90-minute practice with a lot of emphasis on our 3s and 4s playing. And then we gave them Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off. Now, what you're really trying to do in that is get a little bit of jump on preparation with Loras, be able to introduce it on that Wednesday and Thursday like I talked about. But more importantly, I think on Wednesday, Thursday, or excuse me, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you're trying to get their legs fresh. And what I mean by that is, boy, you get tired just standing around that long. In practice, it wears you out. So we had those 3 days off, and we came back with our first practice today, which would normally not be a day of practice for us on a normal game week. So we got a practice in today, and boy, you could tell the difference how our athletes were moving. You could tell the difference in the velocity that our quarterbacks were throwing with. And where I really noticed is with our kickers, our punters and our kickers just seemed to have a little bit more pop in their legs. So today we practiced 90 minutes. Tuesday we'll practice 90 minutes, and our normal practices are 2 hours and 10 minutes. So we're lopping off close to 40 minutes because we got the 2 extra on the previous week from the bye, and we'll shorten up the time. So what you're really trying to do is get your same amount of preparation in, but do it in less amount of time on a daily basis, and then just allow your athletes to be healthy and play as fresh and as easy as they can.
If you could pick a bye week, when you could take your bye week, when would you take it every year?
What a beautiful call that is. Before I played Wartburg, probably I would say.
It's interesting, the WIAC has their bye week right after their non-conference schedule.
Everybody's on the same page. You know, we had the bye week the last week that first year we won the league in 2011 down at Cole, and we got North Central. We could have 7 byes, Tim. It wouldn't matter. We played North Central. But the bye week is good depending who you got to play, where you are. For us, it's just really popped in well because we had a couple guys nicked up. I know guys who've had it in game 1 or 2 that aren't very happy about because then they've got to finish up the 8 weeks. But of course, we had 8 weeks prior to it. So I think a lot depends on how fortunate you are, where you are injury-wise. But again, you got to plan for that in our long-range practice plan, and we knew that bye week was coming, and I was already probably in week 1 planning what we were going to do in that, and it changes based on when you have it. So we try to make good use of it, and the best thing, you know, we got 9 game tapes on Loras. I mean, they got 8 on us. So, I mean, you got to have time to digest that. And without talking about the players, the coaches had an extra week to watch all that tape. And it's just so the viewers understand. I mean, that's probably about 2.5, 3 hours that you're watching game tape on one game. Some guys take longer, sometimes less. I'm probably about a 3.5-hour guy when I watch a game tape. So if you take that times 9, you got to have 27 hours of time to watch tape. And in a regular week, you can't do it. So the bye week allowed us a chance to watch more tape for the coaches, not necessarily for the players, but for the coaches. And we really wanted to get our men to be fresh.
Let's move on and talk about the Key City Clash coming up this Saturday. It'll be over at the Loras College Rock Bowl, 1 o'clock kickoff. And so you've had a lot of time to take a look at Loras. I know they had a disappointing loss 2 weeks ago to Co. They were right in the thick of the second place chase.
And they still are.
To win the conference title, but they are still, as you mentioned. But that was a disappointing one. But they rebounded well against Luther last week.
They're a very good football team. I think we mentioned when we were off the air, I think it might be one of the better teams that we've faced in the last 5, 6, 7 years, whatever that is. Tim, I'm not quite sure. They've got a tremendous run defense. Their front 7 is active. They play what we call a double eagle front, where they cover your 2 guards and your center, and they're just trying to let their 2 inside backers make plays, and they're really good players. They do a number of things on their outside backers, which creates some problems for you in the run game. And then they're playing a lot of quarter coverage and really putting a lot of trust in their secondary to cover people. It's not a man, but it's a man concept within a zone concept. So I'm very impressed with how they've played. Their quarterback has been very efficient. I think he's number 2 in the league to our kid in efficiency, and he's been very accurate. They get the ball out of their hands well. They're going to throw a lot up to their backs and put their backs in matchups with the backers and do those kind of things. But they've won some games this year that maybe in the past they haven't won some close games. And beating Central down at Central is a hell of an accomplishment. I know how hard that is. We've done it a couple times, and it is difficult to play down there. And they really played well at the end of the game to win that game. So it's going to be a very, very tight ball game. Again, like most of these games, will probably be decided by the team that makes the least amount of mistakes. And I think also who can protect their quarterback the best and prevent negative plays is going to have a good chance to win this football game.
They're averaging, I guess, 445 yards a game, giving up 400 on the defensive side. Most of that's to the air. They've been pretty stellar on the ground.
Oh man, we have, as again, we've had a chance to watch all the games. You can't block their inside linebackers. They've done such a nice job of protecting their inside linebackers. They are hard to get a hat on. And then conversely, then those guys are making tons of plays, Tim. If we can't come with some way to get our offensive line off to the second level, it'll be a long day to run the ball against because those two inside linebackers are really, really good. And they've played some really good secondary. The Foley kid, I think, leads the conference in interceptions. He's a very aggressive, I say an ultra-aggressive defensive back, loves to play press man, and he loves to hit you. So they present some real problems for us. It'll be a fun game. It really will be. There haven't been many of our games lately with them that have not been a fun game down to the last possession.
Yeah, you brought that up. You've won 10 straight in the series, but the last 4 have come down to a touchdown or less.
Yes, and usually the last dang possession too, Last year I recall that we kicked the field goal to win it, and it was really an exciting game. And I don't foresee this game Saturday being anything different. I think when you look at us statistically, we're kind of a mirror image. They've done a really good job offensively, and they've done an outstanding job in their rush defense. We've done a really good job on our pass offense. Maybe we've rushed the ball a little bit better, but again, I think in many, many ways, I look at it and think it's really going to be a toss-up.
I don't know how many Division III games there are that are trophy games, but this is one of those.
Oh, and those are so special.
And, this makes it a very unique game because it's you're 6 blocks away from each other.
Don't think that their kids don't see our kids during the course of the year. And, of course, it is a bragging rights in the city. And, of course, it's very important to their athletic and their academic administration, just as it is important to our school and our athletic administration and our president and so forth. And I think that just adds a little bit of spice to that game. We won't need much spice, either of us, when we play each other. I have great respect for Loras' football staff. Jake Olson, their coordinator, worked for me for 2 years. And so we have some crossover on that part, but it'll be a really hard-fought game because neither school wants to lose.
And it's a really important game as you still have a chance at that American Rivers Conference Championship.
I do want to say this to you. So I did tell you I talked to Coach Staker. That's the head coach at Cohen. He had called, and I had told him he's going to beat Central. I just didn't know that, but he did. So I guess I was lucky. But we had talked, and I told him, I think you're the only team in the league that has the best matchup against Wartburg. You have a chance to beat them. Now, they got, I think they have, is it Nebraska Westland this weekend? I think that's who they have.
Yes.
And so then they have Wartburg the last game. And obviously, as you mentioned, if we would win, don't know if we're gonna, but we would be 6-1 with 1 game left to play. And Wartburg will probably be 7-0 to play Co, and Co would be 6-1. So Co controls their own destiny. We have to have somebody help us, but we still have to win our last 2 games, or it doesn't matter anyhow. And the first of those last 2 games is Loras, and they're going to present a really strong contest for us, and I'm excited about playing because I think it'll be a great game.
It's a beautiful week this week. It does sound like there's rain in the forecast Saturday, perhaps. Is there a way? Do you try to prepare for a bad weather game when it's early in the week with
Tim,
a forecast like this?
I think, Tim, anytime you do that, from day one, you're always trying to do is have some kind of balance in your offense. I've often said this in my first couple years at coaching. I was throwing the ball 55, 60 times a game. Boy, it was wonderful in good weather, but it wasn't so wonderful in bad weather, my friend. And so as you get a little bit older, you got to have something that you can do to be able to have some balance. And Tim, most of our games this year, we have done a good job of trying to present that balance. I will also say this, Callian Buckner is going to be a big deal in this game. He's been able to rip off a lot of 50, 60, 70, 40-yard runs. We need a couple big plays in our run game to kind of help us, prevent those guys from trying just to defend the pass. And I think we are going to get some out of him. It'll be a real challenge for our offensive line, who is young as heck, But they're in game 9 now, so you're no longer a freshman. You're really a sophomore when you've played in those games. But big plays, as I mentioned about the negative part, who can make the big plays on offense without turning that dang thing over, I think is going to have an excellent chance to win the game.
It'll be a 1 o'clock kickoff over at the Loras College Rock Bowl, and you'll be able to view the broadcast via a link on udspartans.com if you can't make it to Dubuque. And I hope I think there's going to be a huge
Awesome crowd, yes.
Yeah, it's going to be a highly anticipated ball game, as it always is, and a big crowd with maybe a lot at stake for both teams in this matchup. Coach, anything else about Loras as you get ready for the Duhawks this Saturday?
You know, it's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, it was a really strong rivalry before I got here. Unfortunately, Dubuque didn't have much of that positive side of the rivalry, so we've done a little bit better job of putting ourselves in position to have competitive games with them. We hope we can continue that trend, but I think it's good for football in the city of Dubuque when both schools are doing well.
I sure do too. That's well said. And Coach, good luck to you Saturday. We'll talk to you next Monday night and see if the key trophy is hanging up.
I hope they have it in my hands.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tim.
All right. Coach Stan Zweifel joining us on the University of Dubuque Football Show here on udspartans.com. We'll come back and we'll close out the program for this week in just a moment. And we're back to say goodbye here on the UD Football Show with head coach Stan Zweifel. Again, thanks to Coach Zweifel for joining us. And, of course, the Spartans getting ready for the final road game. I don't know, it's not a real long road trip, of course, 6 blocks away, but it's considered a road game as they take on the Loras College Duhawks this Saturday. Then the next Saturday will be the final home game of the regular season, and see what happens after that, depending on what happens this week. But Spartans will take on the Central College Dutch then. So we'll talk about that game and also the Loras ball game when we meet next Monday night at 6 o'clock for another UD Football Show with head coach Stan Zweifel. So have a great rest of your night. I'm Tim Lary, udspartans.com.